Okay, are we rolling? Wait, before we actually get started, if you saw the title, let me save you some suspense. This episode is for the person who's ever done something so embarrassing, so wildly disappointing, or just so flat out wrong that they've convinced themselves that the story is basically over. And unfortunately, I'm definitely qualified to lead this conversation. Okay, glad that we got that out of the way. Roll the intro.
Hey, I'm Shannon, and this is the Before You Go podcast. A few minutes of truth for the road ahead.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Because I think every single person listening has that moment. Maybe a few, if we're being honest. That decision, that season, that thing that you said, that thing that you did, that moment afterwards where you just sat there thinking, wow, I really messed that up. And maybe for you, people got hurt. Maybe there were real consequences. Maybe it was public and wildly embarrassing. Or maybe nobody except you and God saw. But either way, it's the kind of thing that makes you feel like your story just changed. And if I'm being honest, I've had moments like that too. Not hypothetical ones, real ones. The kind where you think, well, that's going to leave a mark. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this. Because messing up is one thing, but what happens after? That's usually where the real battle starts. Because what usually shows up after failure is shame. And shame is sneaky, not because it's loud, but because it sounds believable. It starts whispering things like, look what you did. You should have knew better. This is probably who you are. God can use other people, just not you. And if you've ever had a thought like that after a mistake, you're not weird. That's literally what shame does. It doesn't just make you feel bad about what happened. It tries to convince you that what happened defines you. This is exactly why Peter's story matters so much to me. And if you're not someone who reads the Bible, stay with me because this isn't really just a Bible story. This is a story about someone who genuinely thought they'd never be the person to mess up like that, and then did. So this guy named Peter was one of Jesus' closest people, not some casual acquaintance, not some random guy in the background. I mean, like close, like really close. The kind of close where if Jesus had a tight circle, Peter was in it. And Peter loved Jesus, like genuinely loved Jesus. He believed in him and walked with him and was loyal, or at least he thought he was. Because there's this moment where Jesus basically tells Peter, hey, things are about to get really hard. And even before morning, even before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter basically says, absolutely not. Not me. Everybody else maybe, but me, never. And honestly, I get that too. Because I think sometimes the mistakes that mess with us the most are the ones that we never thought we'd be capable of. Fast forward, everything gets intense. Jesus gets arrested. People are panicking. There's chaos, there's fear, there's confusion. And Peter, the same Peter who was so sure of himself just a little before, is suddenly standing in a courtyard while all this is happening. And someone recognizes Peter. And they say, wait, aren't you the guy that was with Jesus? And Peter says, no. A little later, someone else asks again. And what does he say? Nope. 3rd time, now he's fully denying it. And right after that, he hears it. A rooster. The exact same thing that Jesus said would happen. And in an instant, it all hits him. Can you imagine that feeling? That immediate pit in your stomach? That, oh no, that I can't believe I just did that. That moment where you realize the thing that you swore you'd never do, you just did. And what does Peter do after that? What a lot of us do. He disappears. And honestly, I can understand that instinct. Because when shame gets loud, hiding can feel safer than being seen. And I think this is where people get so stuck. Not because they messed up, but because of what they believe happens after. Because if we're honest, a lot of us have experience when it feels like we've made a mistake and it changes the way someone else sees you. Things get awkward. Trust fills off. Distance happens. And somewhere along the way, we start assuming God must work like that too. Like maybe this was the final moment that he got tired of us. Maybe this was the thing that changed his mind about us. Maybe this was actually the thing that officially disqualified us. And that's exactly why Peter's story gets me. Because after all of that, Jesus doesn't avoid him. He doesn't shame him. He doesn't make Peter earn his way back. He goes after him. And later, there's this really beautiful moment where Jesus and Peter are sitting together. And I love this because Jesus doesn't just show up like, all right, so do you want to explain yourself now? He asks Peter a simple question instead. He just says, Peter, do you love me? And he asks him this 3 times, which feels intentional, right? Because Peter denied him 3 times. And I don't think Jesus was trying to embarrass Peter. I think he was restoring him. Because grace doesn't just forgive and move on like nothing's ever happened. Grace restores. Jesus meets Peter in the exact place of his failure, not to shame him there, but to remind him that failure did not get the final word. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but maybe that's true for you too. Maybe you did mess up. Maybe it was ugly. Maybe people did get hurt. Maybe there were consequences. Maybe you're still carrying the embarrassment of it, but shame is a liar if it tells you that the story ends there. So before you go, if you've been hiding because of something you're not proud of, come out. Not because what happened didn't matter, not because consequences aren't real, but because grace is bigger than the version of you that failed. And if Jesus could meet Peter there after all of that, then he can meet you there too. Not with shame, not with humiliation, but with restoration.
Hey, thanks for listening today. If this conversation encouraged you, there's a good chance it can encourage someone else too. So if a friend, coworker, spouse, or family member came to mind while you were listening, send this episode their way. For more episodes, resources, and updates, visit bygpodcast.com. You've been listening to the Before You Go podcast, truth for the road ahead.